Good morning, everybody. Here we are as we continue in our Sefer, Kuntres Bikkur Chicago, Touching a City's Soul. We are, Baruch Hashem, doing really great. We're learning inside the first maamer in the Sefer. I hope everyone's enjoying the sichas on their own. They are absolutely beautiful, and they give such a rich background to the maamer that we're learning now. So here we are. We are on page 47, and we have learned that we basically started with a concept to understand. Okay, we really started with a pasuk, but again, that you can review yesterday's class. Talking about the previous classes. Yesterday's class, we delved into the concept of emunah. Because we said that on the one hand, as part of our pasuk, we begin with bitachon. The first word, it says bitachon, and then it says emunah. And so how is it that the first thing is bitachon? Usually we say emunah and bitachon. Emunah comes first. So the Ramban gave an explanation that somebody who lives with bitachon, somebody who lives with this full trust that they've given themselves over, they've given their worries and their struggles and their hardships over to Hashem, that level of bitachon is once you live with that level of bitachon, then you're able to, you obviously have emunah. Somebody who lives with that level of bitachon, of course they have emunah. That's just like the reality that they live with. But someone that has emunah not necessarily lives with bitachon. Just because you know Hashem's in charge, Hashem is creating the world every single second. And again, I hope everyone's enjoying the Tanya of these days, because that's what we're talking about. Hashem creates the world every single second and how that whole thing works. So if you live with that emunah, not necessarily you live with bitachon, right? So we're explaining that having bitachon in a real felt way. And again, you can listen to a bunch of different classes, whether it's Shar Bitachon on our YouTube channel, or whether right now Shar Bitachon, Rabbi Shais Taub is doing Shar Bitachon, which is really, really powerful. Or even listening to Rabbi Shalom Mordechai Rabashkin's classes on Shar Bitachon and his talks. You see that having bitachon, having that calmness of heart, that calmness of mind, that you're not struggling to fall asleep because, all of these struggles. In reality, having that level of bitachon takes a lot of hard work. So we said having bitachon is much harder than emunah. Emunah can easily be aroused. You just learn a little chassidus and it's all good. Meanwhile, the Frierdiker Rebbe quotes his father, the Rebbe Rashab, who explains that emunah needs to be fed and sustained. It needs to be grown. It needs to be invested in. We have to put that time to really work on our emunah. So one second, we just said it was like the easy thing. On the other hand, the Rebbe Rashab is saying that it actually needs to be worked on. So in order to understand this, we went and we delved into eating and drinking. And again, it's very funny how I always say Torah has the answers to everything. You just need to find them. But where do we learn a certain place in Chassidus? To take care of ourselves by eating properly and drinking properly. And how do we see the spirituality of eating and drinking? We see it in this maamer when it explains that it's so mind-boggling, but somehow Hashem makes it that this external thing, such as eating and drinking, is actually what gives us this push, what gives us this ability to be able to connect both our spiritual and our physical. Spiritual, how is it that some piece of food and a nice drink, how is it that that's what connects our neshama and our body? It's mind-boggling, but it is what it is. And so we learn that somebody who's actually hungry, I joked yesterday, it's hangry, someone who's hungry, someone who's really struggling with eating and drinking, it makes it very hard for them to have to put themselves in the right place, because their neshama and their body is struggling to stay together. So again, it doesn't mean overindulge. It doesn't mean you have to have your favorite cheesecake at every meal. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, and the Frierdiker Rebbe actually quotes this in the maamer, that the healthier, and again, healthy, it's what's healthy for your body. It's not doesn't necessarily have to be the quote unquote, healthy, whatever the world says. It's what's healthy for your body, the things that your body needs. That's what it needs to connect, to bond. your body and your neshama. And when you do that, you're feeding and sustaining your like your actual existence in this world. So too here, we take this example, and it's a mashal, it's an example, it's a parable, to be able to understand what it means for us to feed and sustain our emunah. What does it mean to feed our emunah? Very good question. You say when you say that it's less connected. So to a certain extent, in a certain sense, kind of. I mean, yes, there are times when in halacha, and there are times for us that we're meant to fast. And that fast, in a certain sense, is giving us a taste of a disconnect between the physical and the spiritual. Not a disconnect. We're not trying to chas v'shalom kill ourselves. That's not the point. But when we're too indulgent in our physical, then we lose sensitivity to the spiritual. So yes, there's certain times for fasting. There are certain times to take a step out and to really, connect more to the spiritual. So yeah, in a certain sense, that is what happens. If chas v'shalom somebody starves, they could technically starve to death, lo aleinu chas v'shalom. But that's not the purpose. So yeah, in a certain sense, there is a sense of a little bit of a. I mean, at the same time, we do have storage that we can go into, and that's why we are able to fast, and we don't. I mean, most people in a healthy state are able to fast and they don't die. So yes and no, if that makes any sense. But it's a very good question. Okay, awesome. Baruch Hashem. So here we're understanding that the same way as we feed our bodies, we have to feed our emunah. We have to feed this aspect of ourselves. And how do we feed it? And the maamer explains on page 46 that we need to have this beautiful balance with working and toiling and really spending that quality time to feed and sustain from the regards to our spiritual side and regards to our physical side, which means that sometimes the more, and it's funny, it's very interesting that we are a big push for Shavuos is the cheesecake. Everyone makes the Kabbalah of cheesecake, or the cheesecake tasting, or it's like the cheesecake. But sometimes in reality, if we have that cheesecake in the fridge, it makes it very hard to daven, because you're davening, but you're thinking about the cheesecake. Or you're davening and you're thinking about the meal that's going to come, and then the cheesecake, right? So we have to realize that there's an ikar and there's a tafel. There's something that's important and something that's secondary. So yes, on Shavuos, the cheesecake and the milchiks and all the good, I'm a huge milchiks eater, so it's like, yay for me. The cheesecake tastes bad. So yay for me. But at the same time, the reality is that sometimes when we're too entrenched in the physicality, when we're too self-involved, when we're too, I'm too tired to do this, or yes, will do, Mitzvah. So when I'm too tired to do this, or when I'm too stuck, or, I sometimes we get too involved in our physicality that it makes us coarse to our spirituality. It makes us not really pay attention. It makes us not feel. It makes us not be in tune with what our neshama is saying. Sometimes our body wants to scroll through social media, and whether it's our body or it's a hara, nefesh bahamas, it's a whole different discussion. But the physical aspect side of us wants to scroll through social media. We want to, watch YouTube, not good things on YouTube. I'm not talking about a share, but watch YouTube, or even a share in the wrong time when you're not meant to be watching a share. That is a desire, which it's a physical desire to, I want to just chill, I want to relax. Again, if we had a discussion about chilling and relaxing in previous maamerim, but in this context, sometimes that physical desire makes us coarse to not be sensitive and say, you know what, I really do have time to do some chitas. I really would have those 5 minutes if I didn't spend 5 minutes, checking the news incessantly. We have to sometimes put an exertion from our physical selves and say, you know what, I need to make this a priority. I need to make this a priority in my life. I know what's important for me, and I need to put that time And kol hakavod to every single one of you. You woke up early and you got ready and you're here for this share. So you're making this spiritual side of you a priority in your life. So this is what it means that to feed and sustain your emunah, you have to do it through Torah mitzvahs, with spiritual exertion and with physical exertion. And we explain that spiritual exertion is we need to spend that quality time actually, don't just, in a certain sense, I mean, for everybody has different levels and whatever, but like, don't just, mumble some words, let's say in davening, make one tiny little effort to say, to think about what you're saying. Or don't just mumble the words of Tanya, take a tiny little effort to think about what today's Tanya is, or today's Hayom, like, make that effort. Okay, page 47. When one is able to achieve this, his actual fulfillment of mitzvahs will be in a completely different manner. This meaning, when you actually feed and sustain your emunah, when you actually feed and sustain your sensitivity to kedusha, your sensitivity to godliness, you put on your Hashem glasses on a constant basis, your actual fulfillment of mitzvahs will be in a totally different manner. It's kind of like when you prepare for a Yom Tiv, it's a whole different Yom Tiv as opposed to when you don't prepare and you just show up at Rosh Hashanah without having even, opened up anything to think about what's going on for Rosh Hashanah, right? This parallels the manner in which in actual life, the food and drink that a person consumes binds his soul to his body, as explained above. Now of necessity, the act of eating and drinking is performed with both the physical and spiritual faculties, for this is the way the Creator made our nature, that eating and drinking affect both the physical and the spiritual. So too, regarding spiritual service, exertion of the flesh and exertion of the soul are both necessary, right? So just in the same way as eating and drinking affects not just your physical, you feel full, you feel fulfilled, like, oh, okay, now I'm a normal human being. At the same time, you're able, with that eating and drinking, you have the strength to be able to daven, to be able to learn, to be able to be a mensch in your job, to be able to treat your family and your friends respectfully. All of these good things, you're able to do them primarily when you're well fed and taken care of, So it connects the physical and the spiritual. And so to here, when we do, to feed our emunah, we also have to involve our physical and our spiritual. In addition to actually fulfilling the mitzvahs with love and awe, one must also spiritually toil to clarify and explain to oneself the intellectual understanding of godly concepts. So kol hakavod, you guys are all sitting here or standing here, listening and trying with your brain to clarify and to understand godly concepts. You're trying to understand Chassidus. Until the concept can be felt, Shiyirgush. That it literally, you could feel, you could actually connect, you can bond with the concept that we're saying right now, thus strengthening one's fulfillment of Torah and mitzvahs. So when you learn Chassidus, not just in a way of, okay, it's a concept, it's Atzilus, you just say the word Atzilus and you move on, Atzilus, and next time somebody talks to you, you say, I learned this amazing thing about Atzilus, and it was Atzilus. When you actually understand it and you toil and you work towards having an actual relationship, just like we do at Living Chassidus, it needs to be lived with. Every single concept in Chassidus, no matter how lofty it is, has a real avodah relationship to you. And this is from Vav Teves, the Hayomim Vav Teves. You can go check it out. It's one of our favorite Hayomims. And it's true. You can't just say Atzilus and the word Atzilus. And that's what we try and do in this class. And when we have a concept, we try and really toil and understand it. So too here, when you do that, when you work towards understanding Chassidus and not just saying, mumbling Chassidish lingo, so then you actually are able to do the mitzvahs with a feeling, with an emotion, with a real bond and connection to Hashem himself. Okay, now we're on page 49, and we're going to start seemingly a new concept and understand, a new idea, right? So as I said, the Friedrich Rebbe style, he delves deeply into a concept. So what concept did we just delve deeply into? We wanted to understand why it is and how it is that we feed and sustain and we work towards building this level of emunah, towards I forgot the word that he keeps using, but like, you know, really nourishing this emunah. Now we're going to understand a new approach to it, and then we're going to tie the concepts in together. Okay? So page 49, Ois Beis. The explanation of the above concepts is based on the concept that Moshe Rabbeinu is called a Raya Mehemna, meaning faithful shepherd, shepherd of faith. So now we're talking about feeding and sustaining our emunah. So we're going to understand how Moshe Rabbeinu is a faithful shepherd. He in a certain sense, he feeds and sustains our emunah. So we're gonna delve into this topic, okay? Because he nourishes and sustains the souls of the Jewish people with faith, with emunah, so that their faith will be increased, expanded, and greatly strengthened. So having a relationship to Moshe Rabbeinu, what does he do? He's a Raya Mehemna. He feeds and sustains. He increases, expands, and greatly strengthens our emunah. When Hashem called out to Moshe from the burning bush, the pasuk states, Moshe, Moshe. The Idra Rabbah, which is Zayar, on page 138a, notes that there is no cantillation mark indicating a pause between the first and the second time his name is called. So it doesn't say Moshe, comma, Moshe. It says Moshe, Moshe. Okay? However, in the phrases Avram, comma, Avram, Yaakov, comma, Yaakov, Shmuel, comma, Shmuel, which is all the other times in Tanakh that we have somebody's name is called twice, there is a cantillation mark indicating a pause between their names, right? So with Moshe is very different. There is no cantillation mark. There is no Moshe, comma, Moshe. It's just Moshe, Moshe. Chassidic texts explain that when Hashem calls a person's name twice, this indicates that he is addressing the soul as it exists in its spiritual source, as well as the soul as it is manifest in a lower spiritual world. Regarding Avram, Yaakov, and Shmuel, there is a difference between the radiance of the soul on the lower level and the radiance compared with the soul as it exists in the spiritual source. With Moshe, this was not the case as explained above. Okay? So anyone who's taken my Tanya share, or anyone who's learned Tanya, not necessarily my share per se, but we know that a neshama, the source of a neshama, can come from any of the worlds above, right? So we have Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya, right? So any of the souls, the source of a soul could come from any of the worlds above it. That said, the process with which it comes down, it's kind of like taking a Sheikh Taub calls it, kind of like taking a trip, right? So you take a flight. It depends how many stopovers you have on the flight, how exhausted you'll be. And Baruch Hashem, we've had the great schus of going to visit my in-laws in Australia, and it's a lot of stopovers and it's a lot of exhaustion, and it really takes a toll on you, this trip, you know, how many stopovers. So too here, the source of your neshama, it also affects, in a certain sense, the trip down to this place, that sometimes there is a difference in where the soul is in the pristine, so to speak, state that it was at the source, in relation to the soul where it is by the time it actually reaches our world. Okay, so that neshama may have gone through a trip and a few stopovers along the way, and so it has gone through a trip, if that makes sense. It's not wear and tear, because the neshama is chel kama mamamish. It is what, you know, it's pure and holy and amazing. But again, it has a bit of wear and tear from the trip. So here we're saying that the essence of Avram, Yaakov, and Shmuel, the essence of their neshama is it's a different level. It's at a different level than the neshama that actually is in the lower world, where it's, you know, in the body. As opposed to Moshe, which Moshe doesn't have a separation between one's word and the other. It's literally just repeated Moshe, Moshe, without any pause, no commas, or, you know, cantillation mark that means a comma in regards to Torah. So being that Moshe is the exact same, it means that the neshama of Moshe in its source is the exact same as the neshama of Moshe as it comes down here. Okay? The Zayar explains, from the moment Moshe was born, he was perfect. His soul is in its source above, and the soul invested in his body his soul in its source above and the soul invested in his body were in perfect continuity, without a break between them, right? So he's in a state, Moshe Rabbeinu is in a state that the same neshama that's up in its source is the same neshama that he actually has in this world. As the pasuk states, when Yocheved looked at her son Moshe, and she saw that he was good, quote, our sages interpret this to mean that the house became filled with light when Moshe was born. The uniqueness of Moshe's spiritual potential can be understood by the following preface. There are those who serve Hashem with their souls, and those who serve Hashem with their bodies. Okay? Let me see how much we're doing on time so we can, okay. So now we just said that Moshe was perfect, his neshama is exact. So now we're going to understand what it means for different souls. Apparently there's different types of souls. Souls that serve Hashem, to serve its purpose with its soul, and those that serve Hashem with their bodies. The difference between them is that those who serve Hashem with their bodies have to purify and refine their bodies and their emotional attributes, their middays. So some of us come into this world, our neshama comes into this world to come and purify our bodies, and refine our bodies and our emotional attributes. So we're here to fix and work on ourselves, and ourselves meaning nefesh habahamis, our body, doing Torah mitzvahs with our body, and all of these different things, right? However, there are those who serve Hashem with their souls. However, those who serve Hashem with their souls are unique individuals whose bodies and emotional attributes are perfected and don't require any labor of refinement. For the latter type of people, meaning the ones that serve Hashem with their souls, the entire reason for their descent of their souls is for the sake of others, rather to rectify themselves, right? This is what the Zohar means, that means when it says that Moshe was perfect. The entire purpose of the descent of Moshe's soul was in order to receive the Torah and teach it to the Jewish people. Okay? So let's take a moment to understand this. Great. Let's take a moment to understand this. So there are two, as we said in previous maamerim, the neshama doesn't come down here to fix itself. The neshama is perfect, pristine. There is nothing for the neshama to do, to fix itself, so to speak. The chelak elokai, the nefesh elokis, comes to this world to help raise and educate, raise like a child. We raise a child. The child is childish and selfish and, wants its own things. So we're here to raise our nefesh habahamis, our childlike, our childish neshama, nefesh. And we're also here to elevate and raise and refine our bodies. Our bodies, what would they do? They would, if we would just let them do whatever they wanted, they would sleep all day. We know what a lazy Sunday looks like, right? Sleep all day, eat unhealthy things, watch all kinds of weird things, read all kinds of weird things. That's what the body wants to do because that's what it feels good. But we're here to refine it. We're here to teach it. You know what? You have such amazing potential. With your limbs, with your hands, you can grab a sefer, you can learn. With your hands, you can do a mitzvah, you can light Shabbos candles. With your voice, you can connect to someone else and share your love and have Avos Yisrael for them. With every single limb in our body can be used for something beautiful. And we're here to refine it, to teach it. Get out of bed. Let's join a share in the morning, pick up a sefer, daven. All of these beautiful things we're meant to do. Be a mensch. Call your mom. Call your children, whatever it is, right? So we're here to refine, and this neshama is brought here to refine and elevate not just our body, but also our emotions, that we should feel love for God, that we should actually work towards understanding Chassidus in a way that we feel connected, we feel inspired, we feel a boost of inspiration, we feel that we're doing these right things, right? So that said, that's somebody whose neshama comes into this body in order to refine the body. But for someone like Moshe Rabbeinu, his neshama comes into his body. His body was perfect. He was born and there was light. There was perfection. The same Moshe Rabbeinu that's above is the same Moshe Rabbeinu that's here. The same Moshe Rabbeinu in the essence of his soul is the same Moshe Rabbeinu that comes into this world. So that he doesn't need to refine himself in that way. He doesn't need to work on these things. So why does the neshama come here? He comes here for the sake of others, to help us, to help bring, and as we'll say further on, to help bring, feed and sustain our neshama, feed and sustain our emunah. Raya Mehemna, he's here to be our guide and our shepherd. Okay? So now that we know this, tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to discuss. So now we know this part. Tomorrow we're going to get into the comparison between Moshe and Avraham, and that way we're able to understand what actually this whole relationship between, what does it mean, the soul above and the soul below, and the difference between it, and why is it that certain souls come here to refine themselves, like their own body, and certain souls, such as Moshe's, the Moshe of every generation. And right now we're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu himself. He's here to feed and sustain and to be the shepherd and to refine and help others. Yeah, the scent of their soul is for the sake of others rather than to rectify themselves. So Mitzvah Hashem, we'll get into that tomorrow. And we will begin on page 51 tomorrow. Be'ezras Hashem. I hope everyone learned and enjoyed. Have a wonderful day, everybody.